what I want to do is that I would like to create my own custom directive, right? If I hover my cursor on that text box, it should be increased in a size. If I hover over, it should be what? Decreased, right? How to do that, we'll see. Now here, let me have one more row. Right here I can have one more row, and here I can say custom directive. I would be creating my own directive now. So in the directives folder, or I can use this cd directives, and here nggd. What I'm doing, nggd is a directive, and here I can say resizer. Resizer is the name of my directive. Hit the enter, and here you will find resizer is there, right? To the resizer they have attached what you can say, let me change the name. To the resizer they have attached one decorator which is of type directive, and selector, css selector would be resizer, right? It is a TypeScript class. They just have attached this add directive annotation decorator or the metadata over here, right? Resizer. Now I can operate on the styles. Remember that I can operate on the styles of this thing. How? Let me show you. Now I'm going to go here. Yes. So I would be going here, and let me have one input box. Let me add page division. Here, and I need to add one input box. Type is equals to text, right? And I'm going to attach the directive resizer here. We just have created the directive, right? And that directive is nothing but resizer, right? Likewise this ng style, right? You created your own, which is nothing but what? Resizer. ng style, yes, it is a built-in. This is your own resizer, right? If you see this, width of this would be this much, right? I'll mark this over here on the screen. Width of this would be this much. Now what I want to do is that let me increase that size by using some directive attributes. See what I would be doing? So we would be needing one class called as elementRef, just we have used, right? elementRef class just we have used, that is elementRef, right? In the constructor I am writing, what you can say, in the constructor I am writing this dot elref, right? Let's make it private, so you are making it at the class level. This dot elref dot native element dot style, dot width is equals to 300, in the single quotes, 300 pixels. You might be getting some difference. Can you see? It has been increased little bit more. 300 pixels, it has been increased little bit more. If I removed this, this was like this, right? See, it was like this much. If I increase that, this would be this much. See, this has been increased clearly. Means if you want to get the access, right? If you want to get the access of your attached element, here you have attached resizer to the input box, or here you have attached this resizer to the input box, and if you want to get the reference HTML element reference of that input box, this Angular's built-in class will help you. Angular 2's built-in class will help you. Right, element ref. If you can see this class, see what they are saying. A wrapper around the native element inside of a view. So they don't call it as template. Template is too wider term. Right, view is limited to that component. So whatever you can see behind that component is a view. If you see that much well, behind that well there is some logic. That logic is called as view. A wrapper around a native element inside of view. An element ref is backed by a renderer specific element. Renderer specific element. Now renderer specific, there are different renderers for different devices. For the browser there is a renderer is different. If you open this Angular 2 app in your phone, and if you have used any cross-platform utility like this native script, by means of Angular 2 you can create what you can say mobile apps. Right, it's an open source utility. Right, so build amazing iOS and Android apps like this. So you don't need to have three technologies at your space. Only one, that is Angular 2.0, and in the Angular 2.0 by using TypeScript you can make mobile applications. And at that time, why I'm telling you that, because renderer would be different, and that's why they have said renderer specific. This is a renderer specific for every single device or platform more specifically. So platform as in your browser. Mobile browser is something different than your desktop browser. Right, so renderer is different for both. I'm going to pull the renderer in picture in few minutes. See this? This is usually a DOM element. You are directly getting reference to the DOM element. Right, so problem is that if you use this thing over here, right, sometimes you may need to forcefully call the change detection cycle. Right, that is killing your application actually. Why we are using Angular? Because we don't need to go in the DOM manipulation, and indirectly you are doing the DOM manipulation. This is not allowed actually, but by means of Angular you can do this thing because of this native API that you are using here. Because of this native API you are using over here, like element ref. If you open this app on the Angular 2 native script and iOS, right, this may cause some problems. To avoid that, they said that please introduce the renderer. Right, let me have private and rend. I can have renderer R. Right, so it is one of the class in the Angular which will help you to render, few things on your screen. But if you go to the documentation of this class, deprecated. Do not use this. So in the upcoming versions of the Angular, present Angular version is 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, this class wouldn't be anymore. And they clearly stated that please remove or don't use this class. Instead of use renderer2, we'll use that. So instead of this renderer, I'm going to use renderer2 and import the renderer2. Right, so if you have renderer, you don't need to directly access the native element. You don't need to access native element directly. So how you would be accessing then? See, this dot rend dot what you can say set style. Set style. So style would be width. You can have width. Right. Sorry. First would be elref. You need to pass the native element elref dot native element, then which style, width, and then what would be the value, 300 pixels, width and 300 pixels, and here you would be getting same effect. Effect would be same, but in a more effective manner. So this would be running very precisely on the iOS platform, Android platform, and your native browser platform. So this is a correct way of dealing with what you can say your native elements. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. You are just referring to the native element. Here you are manipulating the native element. Now if you go to the renderer too, right? So they have given you, let me go to the first renderer. If they have kept the documentation, they had clearly written that, right? Okay, so I think on the Angular 2 element ref, so here I have read that, see this, permitting direct access to the DOM can make your application more vulnerable to the XSS attacks. Now what do you mean by XSS attacks? See, if you see Control U over here, sorry, or if you open what you can say your console, and if you try to inject some JS from here, see alert, what you can say, hello, this is XSS, right? You are trying to inject your code from here, that is XSS. If you use element ref or native element or the DOM manipulation, this is all the time problem. To avoid such things, you would be going through, they have clearly written, that do not use this class directly. Carefully review, right? Carefully review element ref in your code. And because of this, they said that please go to the, what you can say, please go to the renderer class, right? Please go to the renderer class, right? And that's why we have injected this renderer here, this renderer here. You can directly use it, right? But XSS problem would be there. If you want to avoid that cross scripting, right, kindly inject the renderer, and via renderer you can do this thing. Same thing, you just have given the reference width and the actual width, whatever it is. So this is how this class will give you access to the attached element, and this class will help you to style it. This class will help you to style it. Now who will help me to modify or change whatever it is width of this thing at the runtime? On the cursor hover over, if I am going to hover the cursor on this, size should be increased. If I am going to go out of that, size should be automatically decreased. General need in the project, right? This is the simple need in the projects. How to do that thing? I'll show you. So whatever element is that, right, that can be accessed by using element ref, and on the top of element ref they have written one metadata or the annotation called as host listener. Host listener, listening some events on the particular host where you have attached this hash, what you can say, your directive. This, if you want to listen events on the particular elements, right, you would be attaching the host listener. So I would be having few methods. See, increase the size or bigger. I would be having bigger, and smaller would be two methods. Bigger and the smaller would be two methods. Bigger and the smaller, right? Bigger and the smaller, and these two methods need to be invoked. What I'm saying, these two methods need to be invoked on mouse enter and mouse leave particularly. So here you would be having at host listener, at host listener, on which event mouse enter and mouse leave, mouse enter and mouse leave. So very simple, you are just going to copy this line. On the mouse enter, that would be 300 pixels. Instead of 300, you can make 500 pixels, and on the mouse leave you can make it, what you can say, 300 pixel. And impact of this would be this. Right, impact of this would be this. Right, so this is the fundamental setup of the directive, which will help you a lot by means of host listener, right, then element ref and the renderer too. In the next tutorial I'm going to tell you some more advancement, right? Okay.